This is Rob Tubbett for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. It's fight week. It's back, the World Boxing Super Series, and I'm delighted to be joined, as always, by King Kalle Sauerland. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Rob. How are you, mate? Thank you for the royal introduction. We're back. We're excited. We're in fight week. Fever is on, and it's great. I mean, it's a different type of fight week, but it is not a different type of WBSS fight and not a different type of WBSS final. So from that point of view, couldn't be more delighted right now.
You certainly look it, Kalle. I've caught up with you a couple of times over lockdown when we've been doing those bastard Zooms. We've been locked in our houses. You got that famous Kalle grin back. Really great stuff to have the World Boxing Super Series back.
It is. It's got me grinning. It's got hopefully a lot of fans grinning. And, there's been some great shows, to be fair. Matchroom, Moran, Top Rank, Team Sauerland's had a couple of good ones. But for me, this one is boxing's back. And that's not just because it's us doing it, WBSS. It's the first big transatlantic collision of two giants in that weight class. The number one, Briedis, against the number two, Usyk-Chisora, in that weight. And, it's obviously for the Muhammad Ali trophy. It's for the World Championship, but it's also, for the Ring Magazine belt. It's one of those ones where, once again, as the WBSS tries to do, clear out all the rubbish and find out what the answers are, who the best in that weight class is. So, it has the makings of another epic. We've been spoiled with the finals and with other fights, the semi-finals, and been some great quarterfinals. But this one has a special feel to it, as always, around the final. And you can hear the church bells going in the background in Munich here in Bavaria. We were out somewhere in the countryside outside of these fantastic film studios, best film studios in Europe, and it's going to be one hell of a night.
It certainly is. As just correctly mentioned, you've got Briedis and Usyk-Chisora, familiar from the first season of the World Boxing Super Series, where they both came up short in the semi-finals. What have you read from both of them going into this? The opportunity to go one step further, to get their hands on the Ali Trophy after coming so close against two brilliant fighters in Murat Gassiev and Alexander Usyk in the previous season.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I asked that question to the fighters on the podium today at the press conference, and they both had very different semi-finals. Usyk, Briedis, one of the best fights I've ever witnessed live, promoted, and simply, both fights were that. They both were, but different. And Usyk, Briedis it was so close. It was, you could have given it either way. A draw would have been absolutely fine. If it had been a draw, the fourth judge had it for Briedis, so Usyk would have gone out in the semis and Briedis would have gone on. So it was that close. Obviously very different to Dorticos, who went out in an all-out slugfest with Gassiev and came up short. But it was one of those classic slugfests that we'll be watching in decades probably to come. And he was very unlucky that he wasn't the winner. So it was both of them seemed to, when they answered that question, and it was exactly, your question was exactly what I wanted to hear from the fighters today, and it spurred them on. Actually, Briedis went as far as to say he's happy now that it was not given for him, because he's bettered himself as a fighter for it. He's corrected mistakes that he saw in that fight against Usyk, which was that close, and that makes a great fighter. So let's see. He certainly showed it so far in the tournament. We'll see on Saturday night if that's the case, so that he can do it against Dorticos. And Dorticos was talking about going away and rebuilding, and they're both great athletes. They're both multiple world champions, decorated from head to toe. Don't need to talk about their credentials. And those knockout ratios, Dorticos, 91% at that level. Look at the level of opponents, that they've been through, incredible. I've listed them out today. These guys in the tournament, in the 2 seasons they've been through Mike Perez, Kudryashov, Gassiev, Usyk, Matthias Masternak, Noel Gavor, Andrew Tabiti, Glavatsky. I mean, it's like a who's who of the cruiserweight. So that knockout percentage from Dorticos is very impressive, 91%. And Briedis in his 70s, 70%. I mean, Briedis actually came to Germany, the place where no one could win a world championship, and wiped the floor with Marco Huck to win his first world title 3-4 years ago now. So they've been there, they've done it. It's not that this is their first, big stage fight. They know what it is. Of course, it's behind closed doors. I don't think they both can remember boxing through, lesser crowds and things. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting on a sporting side, but also how they cope with the whole situation, without mentioning that big C word.
Yeah, the other big C word. I think it's probably important to point that out for those filthy-minded viewers that we have over at Boxing Social. You make a good point there about the crowd, Kalle. I was, as you know, booked in, hotel paid for, and all sorted for Riga for the original date. Riga, everybody has ever told me that you must go and watch a fight in Riga. The atmosphere is second to none. There's not going to be that this time. Does that favour Dorticos, not having that kind of vociferous atmosphere of Riga, the homeland of Myris Briedis?
I think there's fighters who pick up on a crowd during a fight. Ricky Hatton's a great example. I don't think neither of them are that. They're both very tunneled guys. They go in there to do a job. I don't think that will make much difference. I think there's other fighters who really thrive on that crowd. So that's going to be, I've seen fighters talking about it. Can they get up for it? I saw Josh Taylor making a comment, I think it was during lockdown, where he said, am I going to be able to get up for that fight? He's fighting Saturday also, great fight. There will be fighters who I think that they'll have to learn to adapt. Now, champions at this level, they adapt for a lot of much harder things than not hearing the crowd. But of course, there are some that, thrive on it. I mean, I remember actually, not so long ago, actually a year ago, was watching the Price-Chisora fight. And I remember the first time the whole of the O2 was singing Del Boy's name, and I promoted Del Boy for a number of years. And Del Boy's also boxed in front of very small crowds and not always been, on big pay-per-view events. And I think that really gave him something in the ring that night. You could almost feel it off him. When you watch the fighter a lot of times and you know the individual, Del Boy fed off the crowd that night, and you could see him suddenly surge and finish the fight off. It was just before the end. And that, I don't think that's the case with these two. But once again, we're talking here as boxing experts and fans and whatever, but at the end of the day, the guys in the ring, they'll show up on Saturday.
Now, we mentioned obviously the names and the stellar names that both men have come through, not just in this season, but also season one. There's been obviously now this significant break. Does this kind of make it more of a standalone fight? Obviously, I'd probably assume that Dorticos would have been the guy who was coming in with the momentum. That's now kind of been stripped away. Would you agree with that?
I think anyone boxing now going straight into a big fight like this is going to have to train in a very different way. Now, first of all, when you're training during when I have to use the C word, during the Corona times, you're going to have to adapt your training routine to what it normally is. Normally, you speak to your I'm talking about the big top end main event fights. Talk to your promoter, you get a fight, you get a date, you get the opponent, you get a selection of opponents. Right? So that's a bit different right now. You're going to be boxing often on shorter notice. You're going to be often told this is the opponent and not this is, well, look, we could look at these three guys or girls and we'll tell us which one you like the most, we'll see if we can cut a deal. That ain't the case now. That's not the case in the World Boxing Super Series anyways, because, you know, you're in the tournament and there's a tournament tree and you've got to fight the people who put in front of you. But generally, the training is going to be a lot different for fighters at the moment, because you're relying on not your promoter, you're relying on what certain government decisions are around fight sports, you know, around, you know, you see broadcasters also, they're tentatively coming out, but it's not like this surge, you know, it's not like a surge of big fights being announced, which a lot of people expected. You know, we expected, all right, gates go up and it's come out. Now, obviously, you know, Matchroom put on that fight camp over quite a few weeks, but there, you know, with due respect to the people who fought, there wasn't any huge fights. There wasn't, you know, unifications and things like that. You know, that wasn't the case. Yeah, White Povetkin wasn't a world title fight. It was a great fight and it was a big fight, but it wasn't an American and an English guy, you know, coming across. It was, of course, a very different type of fight. So you see that everyone's still cautious. I mean, I think it's terrific that yesterday Chisora Usyk getting announced with or without crowds. And I think that that's what promoters are going to have to start doing. Fighters and promoters are going to have to start understanding that there's a financial fee for some type of an event, and there's a financial fee for another type of event, because the economics, of course, are quite different. But going back to the training part, you know, it is going to be a little bit more, even for the big stars, it's not going to be a case of, yeah, I fancy that weekend and I fancy that venue. No, that ain't going to happen. You know, if you would have told me that this fight was going to take place in a film studio in Munich, you know, a few months ago, well, I said, yeah, I can't see that happening, but here we are, you know, and we're delighted to be here. So you know, it's certainly changed.
Got to get your own fight island, Kalle.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, at the moment, Rob, you've just got to move and move and think after almost, because if you're relying on, oh, well, they're going to bring this down in a month and this is going to change and we'll wait till this, forget it. Go out and grab it, you know? Go out and grab it with both hands and move forward, and let them tell you that ain't the way you're going to do it, and not the other way around. Because if you're waiting, you won't go forward in the sport at the moment. You need to go, can't do it, and not the other way around. Without breaking any laws, yeah?
Good little end disclaimer there. I like that. Always thinking about when you have.
Don't do this at home. People, do not do this at home.
Moving on, yesterday on Twitter.
If you do, just say Kalle told you to.
Judge Kalle.
Yeah.
There we go. Moving on, you set the cat amongst the pigeons yesterday, as you usually do, talking about a heavyweight World Boxing Super Series. Kalle, talk to me about it.
First of all, I put the cat amongst the pigeons. It was a few cats amongst quite a few pigeons, actually. In fact, I called it a whole veterinary surgery full of cats, you know. So, yeah. Is it the first time I mentioned it? I don't think so. Yeah, called it lockdown madness. I think we're obviously looking now what weights to do in season 3. The final's over Saturday. The attention immediately turns to season 3. And those bells again, by the way, in the background. I feel like I'm in church. I better not lie. I better not lie right now. So, you know, when I look at the weights, those weights I look at, I put together my suggestions. Those go to a board, and the board then ultimately decides which ones are deemed the best suggestions. And amongst those ones are the heavyweights, right? So, yes, we are looking at them. We can confirm that. But we are also looking at, you know, the other one that seemed to have put the cat amongst a few pigeons. I've said the females, you know. and the females, it's not only one weight. There's a couple of weights you look at: the super feathers, the welterweight, catch weight. So there's those. I've added to the list in case anyone's watching what I've been saying pre-lockdown and post-lockdown. I've added to that the middleweights. I still love the flies and the super flies. Maybe even the catch weight, shake it up a bit. But it is a special time in everything. I'm not going to use the C word. And in this special time, it's time maybe for a special version of the WBSS, maybe a special thinking outside the box version. Do you go just with one weight? Do you go just with maybe semi-finals and a final? Do you have to go with a shortened version of the tournament, for example? Do we have to look at it behind closed doors in case we can't go? And by the way, there I see us in a very good position to deliver to the market a season long of events, even if shit hits the fan. Yeah, I think that there we are in a much better place than if we were a normal promoter. We have a different setup. We have a different model. Can't give away all the secrets there, but I do feel that we're in a very strong position to do that, and we've had some great talks with certain promoters, we work well with all the promoters because we're not really promoters ourselves. We're putting on a tournament, so especially at this time. I'm not going to use the C word. This special time, I'm going to use it special. So when I say special today, I'm talking about the C times. So we're in this special time. It's very important to work together. And yeah, we want to be doing our thing. They want to be doing their thing, but working together, and we blended well into the ecosystem of boxing. We worked with all the promoters very well. Maybe some a little bit more than with others, but the door's always open, and I've never held with the big promoters. I had my rows here and there, but mostly made up and kissed afterwards. And never let your egos or personalities or whatever get in the way of making a good tear up.
Yeah, that's very well said. And it's something that me and you have spoken about in several instances before, particularly during lockdown. We've kind of trying to guess what the future was going to look like. We spoke about the potential for promoters to start working together. With that in mind, what do you make of Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren? I spoke to Eddie yesterday. Eddie said that they've actually arranged a date now, apparently, for them to have lunch. Surely got to be good for boxing if it comes off.
So what was it? What was the latest on it? Because I have been following that. It's like a little bit like watching EastEnders. You're sort of hooked on the, will they go for lunch? You'd think you're talking about a pair of, anyways, it's a bit bizarre, isn't it? Are we talking about, I had lunch with Eddie a couple of weeks ago. Frank, don't get jealous. I'd love to have lunch with you as well, Frank. And I'm sure we'll do that in the next weeks to look at what we can do together on the WBSS. But I think it's great they're talking. Do I really give a shit? No. Am I interested by the story? It's quite a funny story, isn't it? Frank's great on his interviews. And Eddie's fantastic on social media, as we all know. So they're very funny in their own way. And listen, when you're in the environment, I love characters, and I think I think the whole storyline's good for boxing in itself. But let's skip past it. I can't see much coming out of that lunch apart from maybe a couple of bottles of empty wine.
What they need is a good mediator. Yeah,
I don't think I'm the right person for that. but no, joking aside, yeah, maybe they need to take their networks to the lunch as well. I don't know, but I'm not. At the moment, unfortunately, I haven't got too much time to think about their lunch. But it is funny, and it's a funny one, and I'm enjoying the banter back and forth between the two of them as we all are. But But my focus right now is on this final this weekend, and then ramping up season 3. That's the next one, and you know, that's a lot of work.
It certainly is. And with that in mind, final question. We mentioned Alexander Usyk and Derek Chisora, 2 men that you know very, very well earlier on. As you mentioned, it was announced yesterday. Talk to me about the fight. Don't sit on the fence. Who wins that fight?
Hey, you got to say Usyk, but I love Del, so I'm going to give Del a shot at it. I just got to ask me to sit on the fence. Can we do this like close to the fight, Rob? Give me a little breathing space. Let me have a think about it, because, you know, and I'm delighted for Del, because he's you know, solid fella. Not only that is he solid physically, but he's actually he's a cool character. Actually, you know, I kept on bumping into Del at the Butcher's during lockdown. And we had a good chat and catch up, and you know, we had some great times with Derek, and I'll always treasure those times, even when he's sworn at me in public and whatever. But you know, we always kissed the maid up pretty quick. But you know, you've got to give it to Del. You've got to give it to Del for doing it and for turning his career around. I think. Whatever David's influence on Derek, or whether it's something around there, it does seem to be a spark between the pair of them, which is, just think about it. I mean, when I was promoting Hay, it was the time when it all kicked off with Derek, you know? I mean, I remember them chasing around West End restaurants with knives, you know? It was all sorts going on, and here they are, you know, and that's great to see, because they're both. I get on very well with David as well. They're really. I think they're a real dynamic duo in boxing, you know, and I enjoy watching them together in their, you know, the funny clips they've done in recent times. And I promoted Usyk as well, so in fact I've promoted all 3, and they're all fascinating, very different to work with, you know. I would say all very different to work with. I think I'd sum them all up, but so it's an eclectic mix. And the reason I'm bringing David, I think David also has a factor in this fight. You know, he's clearly saying the right things to Derek. He's got Derek in a good place. That Derek has come on and like the way he did a job on Pricey, who I've also promoted. So. If you would have said to me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Price, Chisora, I said, and actually there was once I think we tried to make the fight, I would have said Price would have been the favourite, strong favourite. Derek didn't give him a chance, you know? So Derek has really come on. And the fight that for me mentally changed it was the one in Manchester, where the first Dillian White fight. Derek was different that night. There was something that happened, and only he will know what that was. I don't think it was anything in particular. Maybe it was trying to take my head off of that table that he threw over me at the press conference. But he's really come alive, and credit to him. You know, Derek he loves boxing. He loves training. He loves, you know, I saw him recently training MMA, the crazy man, you know, but he loves it, and you know, good on him. And you know, it's going to really be difficult for me to pick a winner on that. But we'll do that close to the fight. I will give you an answer, but I've got to say, Derek has that momentum with him. And people say you're nuts, but you know, Usyk, listen, you can't argue with the skill set. Like David A said in the interview, he said, look at their records and look at the CVs. But that all goes out the window. When that bell goes, it's a tear up, you know. So. You know, on the street, I know would win. Yeah. So, you know, of course, it's in a ring. It's the rules, and Usyk is by far the much technically superior, but one of the best technically gifted boxers on the planet. So that's not saying Del ain't gifted as I am, but Del brings something else. He brings, as he puts it, he brings war. You know, and I think that's the mentality. You know, and maybe I just cracked it. I think that bit, since he's using this war thing, you know, it seems that his attitude is different. It's not, you know, Derek turning up, the bad boy, you know, and he comes up with his bandana and then it kicks off occasionally here and there, you know, and tables go flying and bottles get thrown. And, I've chased Derek through, I've chased after Derek, sorry, not chased Derek, I've chased after Derek through hotel kitchens where he's been chasing Bulgarian fans before the Pulev fight, this is, and tables and God knows what thrown through the kitchen. I've been there with Derek. I've been in the trenches with Derek. I've seen it all, and I said I love the guy, and I think it's a cracking fight. And what a date to put it on, Halloween. Hats off, Charlie. That's a good date. That's a good date. No, I like that. I have a bit of that.
Okay, well, we look forward to it. Also, look forward, of course, to the final of the World Boxing Super Series Cruiserweight edition. It's Briedis, it's Usyk-Chisora. The World Boxing Super Series is back. Kalle Sauerland, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Rob.
I look forward to seeing
the next one we do live, my friend. We do it live and in person, in the flesh.
All right, Kalle. Thanks very much.
Out from Germany.
Cheers, Kalle.